Right. Hello, Dr. William Painter here for a sermon and song. I think is probably what this, or maybe song and sermon. Get them in the right order. This is the second Sunday after Epiphany, and actually the song I'm going to do today, I'm going to do it poorly, as I do all my songs, poorly, but with passion. And this one was a good friend of mine asked me to do this song, not for this sermon, but she asked me. She said, "Would you please sing this song?" And I'll be honest with you, I've never really been asked to sing anything before. I mean, people like tolerate it, I think, but no one ever said, "Hey, would you?" So, in the spirit of it only happens once in your lifetime, I said I would. I said I would do it, and I've been working on it very hard for Jill, and the reason it's important is because we both knew someone that we lost, and there's something kind of special about this song and the situation that we're in. So I'd never heard it before. I'd never heard it. So I pulled it up and listened to it, and I was like, "Oh, that's so sweet. It's so nice and so melodic," which doesn't actually suit my style, but so I've been working on it hard, and I've learned it, and I'm going to play it now. And it took me a long time to play it without tearing up doing it. You know, some songs when you do them, they're so so there that you just kind of tear up over it. I do anyway. Perhaps it's a function of old age. And so I'm going to do this song, and I hope you enjoy it. And then we'll come back for an inspirational, presumably inspirational sermon or homily. So here we go. Why are there so many songs about rainbows, and what's on the other side? Rainbows are visions, but only illusions, and rainbows have nothing to hide. So we've been told, and some choose to believe it. I know that they're wrong, wait and see. Well, someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. Who said that every wish would be heard and answered and wished on a morning star? Somebody thought of that, and someone believed him, and look what is done so far. What's so amazing and keeps us stargazing, and what do we think we might see? Oh, someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. easy being green. I made it through. I'm going to put up the old guitar and come back with something less.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah, I hit some bad notes there, and I do apologize. But as they say about church choirs, the angels auto-tune us. So if you will forgive me, the idiosyncrasies of not being able to sing well, I would appreciate it. Today is the second Sunday after Epiphany, and as such, we have a gospel reading. This gospel reading comes from John chapter 1, verses 43 to 51. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee, and he found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now, Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We've found him about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph, from Nazareth." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" And Philip said to him, "Come and see." When Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him, he said of him, "Here is truly an Israelite, in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "Where did you get to know me?" Jesus answered, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." Nathanael replied, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered, "Do you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Very truly, I tell you, you will see heaven opened, and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." Thus endeth the gospel. This is a wonderful piece, and it's wonderful for so many reasons, because it has connections to Old Testament, Moses in the law, and this, and also conjures up the image of Jacob's ladder, right? Angels ascending and descending upon the Son of Man, and he sees Nathanael sitting under a fig tree, not just any old tree. He didn't say, "Oh, I saw you sitting under the tree over there, or under the palm tree over there." It was under the fig tree, and there's meaning behind all of this, but there's meaning behind that. And that is that many of the rabbinical students and rabbis would study and discourse under fig trees. And so seeing Nathanael under the fig tree. And then and I love Nathanael's response. He said, what is it? Can anything good come out of Nazareth? And you've heard this in your life, right? I mean, you're talking to someone, he said, "Oh, well, so-and-so's from Tabor," which is a town nearby here. And then the other person goes, "Oh, people from Tabor. Can anything good come out of Tabor or Pacific Junction?" Or, I mean, it's a real sort of look down your nose kind of a slap. And that tells us a couple of things about Jesus. He didn't come, if we were to put him in contemporary terms, he didn't come from Des Moines. He didn't come from Chicago. He didn't come from Omaha. He came from, Pacific Junction, which is it was wiped out during the flood. There's not much there. People in Pacific Junction have a reputation for being a bit rough around the edges, and decent, good yeoman folk, but not living in Berkshire Hathaway houses over in Omaha either. So Jesus comes from a place that is a bit rough around the edges, right? He doesn't come from a famous place. He comes from Nazareth, and that's key here, I think, to understand who Jesus was and what he was doing. And what's key to, and there's a couple of things that are just really compelling about this passage. And that is, Jesus doesn't try to convince him. Jesus doesn't try to convert him. Jesus doesn't say, "Hey, you're going to go to hell if you don't come follow me," which we hear a lot of, in fact. The way of salvation is if you follow me. Jesus doesn't say that to Nathanael. Jesus just says, "Follow me." That's all. And so you have to think that this guy, Jesus, the guy, Joshua, right, must have had an extraordinary personality to be able to just say to somebody, "Follow me," and they get up and follow him. If I tried that, they'd be like, "Where are you going?" And Nathaniel doesn't ask, so where are you going? No, Nathaniel just gets up and follows him. And this, of course, is part of the broader story of Jesus gathering his apostles, gathering his disciples, his followers. And his approach to them always is, you're destined for great things. There are great things coming. You will see things that you never imagined seeing before. Come follow me. And that's what he says. He just says, follow me. He doesn't say, give me money. I don't think Jesus ever once said, say, about that donation you mentioned, never does. He never says, if you give me money, you'll become rich and God will favor you. He never says any of that. None of that is ever said. He just says, follow me. And they do. They follow him. And I think here, as I've read this passage and read what others have said about this passage, the thing I really hang my hat on in it is that one simple phrase that, let me get the name, that Philip says, Nathaniel says, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Which is a challenge. Philip just basically say, what's up with this? There's nothing good here. And Philip responds to Nathaniel and says, come and see. And he doesn't say, hey, it's worth your while. He doesn't say, hey, you're going to be impressed. He just says, come and see. That's all he says, is come and see. Now, as Christians, it seems to me that ought to be our response. Our response shouldn't be, oh, you're going to go to hell if you don't convert. Oh, if you don't believe the way I believe, you can't come to church. You can't take communion. You can't sit in the pews. You can't get married. You can't you're excluded. You're outside. In fact, I had a discussion this week with an ecumenical group, and two of the members, there was some discussion about the statement of faith. And basically the statement of faith was straight up Council of Nicaea and the Confession of Augsburg, the Trinity and, the holiness of the Scriptures. And you've heard this rhetoric before. You learn it and you recite it in church to demonstrate that you are one of the ones, one of the chosen. And it's in Luther's Catechism. It's in every confirmation class. It's in the Catholic Catechism. You learn to say these things, and so they're baked into the statement of faith. And so these spiritual leaders in this community I'm in, they were, we don't want it to be inclusive. We don't want to include Latter-day Saints, for example. And we don't want to include Buddhists or Hindus. We're not the United Way, okay? We're not the Salvation Army. There's a litmus test. We're not some NGO, okay? We're a Christian group. And my response to that was, you have to decide if you are focused on mission, that is feeding the needy, taking care of the needy, taking care of God's kingdom, as Jesus has asked you to do, or you are providing, you are a doctrinal institution, okay, that you say either you adhere to this, or you can't be a part, you can't play in our sandbox. And if you can't play in our sandbox, you can't give us money. And if you can't give us money and donate, then we can't. So basically, we don't want you. Right? We don't want you. I used to lead this group, and I had wanted to change this statement of faith years ago. And they were like, oh, no, we can't do that. And the argument that finally won was, well, there aren't any Buddhists here, and there aren't any Hindus here, and there aren't any Jews here. But there were Latter-day Saints. And strictly speaking, Latter-day Saints, I don't mean this as a criticism, but strictly speaking, they're not Christians, right? They are not aligned with the Christian theology. They got another book. They're no more Christians than Muslims are. Muslims got another book, okay? Latter-day Saints have another book, and yet we're all people of the book. So I'm not sure that the litmus test is important here. I'm not sure that theological testing is important. In fact, I made the argument that Jesus wasn't a theologian, and that didn't go well. It went very badly. to be honest with you. It went very badly when I said Jesus wasn't a theologian. But I have to say this, that rationally, that is an untenable position. Because theologians are human beings who are well versed in doctrine and reason and logic and speculate on the nature of God. That's what they do. That's what a theologian does. That's a Thomas Aquinas or an Albertus Magnus or a Martin Luther, okay, or a Jean Calvin or John Wesley. These people were theologians. They studied, they read, they used reason and logic and an extensive education to speculate on the nature of God and the cosmology of Christianity. And that is a human act. Okay, that's a human act. And if Jesus is the Son of God, as they say in their statement of faith, and is begotten, not made, then he doesn't speculate on the nature of God. He is God. Okay, he can't be a theologian because he is God. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say he's God and he's a theologian. But that's just no. They fail to grasp the dichotomy that is there. People, academics, intellectuals are theologians. And they try to come up with theological explanations for the nature of evil, the nature of God, and the nature of sin, and all these kinds of things. And they write catechisms. Well, they don't really write them, but they establish, theology out of which catechisms are written and statements of faith are derived. And but Jesus, according to these same people, was God. And therefore he cannot, by definition, he cannot be a theologian. And they don't grasp, they can't grasp that. So I resigned. I was like, I don't want to have anything to do with that. Because when you read this passage here, Philip says, come and see. That should be our response, is come and see. Not a litmus test, not a test of faith, not a statement of faith, not any of that. It should be come and see. Come and see how angels ascend and descend upon the Son of Man. Feed the hungry, clothe the naked, house the homeless, take care of the people in jail, put on a bloody mask so that you don't kill your neighbor. All right? That is what we come and we see. I liked the song that I did earlier, the Rainbow Connection, for this very reason. Because that is what actually connects those of us who consider ourselves disciples and followers of Jesus. And I do. I consider myself a follower of Jesus. Now, if you ask me, well, was he begotten, not made? I don't know. How can I know that? Okay? I'm not a theologian. I suppose I could speculate on it. Was Mary a virgin in the modern sense of a woman who is not engaged in sexual intercourse? Well, I don't know. I don't know that. I can't state that. I can't know that. And in fact, I don't think it's even important. I mean, I don't even think it's relevant. In fact, I would say many of the theological, the nature of the Trinity, okay? These questions have divided Christendom from the 4th century on, okay? When they were trying to decide if Jesus was co-eternal with God, okay? And I'm thinking, if you answer that question, what difference does it make? Does that put bread on my table? Does that take care of the kingdom of God? Does that take care of my neighbor? Does that encourage me and help me to love God, knowing whether Jesus is co-eternal? Well, I'll tell you, that's the difference between Western Christendom and Orthodox, Byzantine Christendom, and theological disputations and disagreements have resulted in millions of lives being lost. I used the reference of Servetus in Calvin's Geneva, who was burned at the stake for not being doctrinally pure. He had non-traditional ideas about, I think it was actually the Trinity. He was a brilliant man. He was a brilliant artist. He was a brilliant rhetorician. He was a talented gift to humanity, and they burned him at the stake because he had, non-traditional ideas about the Trinity. And even if he had, how would that have changed anything? Okay, this idea that you have a litmus test, and what you don't see in the Scripture is a litmus test. Love God, love your neighbor, follow me. And that's what they did. They got up and they followed him at great risk to their lives. And the people that followed Jesus, and I don't, and this goes back to my first point, is what good could come out of Nazareth. We're not academicians. They were not priests. They were not the wealthy. In fact, he says to the wealthy people, well, give up everything you got and follow me. And they're like, oh, I don't know about that. Okay. It was how dedicated are you? The people who followed him were blue-collar workers, fishermen, farmers. Okay? They were common people from common backgrounds, like Nazareth, which was common. And I think that is, we glide over that. We just like, oh, well, the disciples, and we build statues to them, and we put icons in our churches of the disciples, the apostles, and all that. They were just like the guy next door who decided to get up and follow Jesus. The second Sunday of Epiphany, as Jesus gathers his followers, is really, I think, about how do we act as Christians? Where do we come from? From places nothing good can come from. Okay? And who are we? Well, we're just a person without deceit sitting under a fig tree. And why do we follow Jesus? Well, I'm not sure we know why we follow Jesus. We just do. And I think that these litmus tests, these statements of faith, have done nothing for us at all. They have not contributed one iota of goodness in the world. They have confused, they have divided, they have caused wars. There's nothing worse than a sectarian war, I mean, are you a true believer? Well, I don't know, off with his head, right? How is that loving your neighbor? And they put the important messages of Jesus aside, and they say, were you a follower? Do you adhere to the statement of faith? And we see this ideology written out in the last administration, where completely incompetent people were placed in positions of power simply because they were willing to sign a statement of faith. Well, maybe they didn't sign it, but it was a political, ideological agenda that put them where they are. It wasn't because they were good at their job, because they aren't. They're no good. They can't govern. And those people who went to Washington to capture, to assassinate, to take over the Capitol building, how is that? How does that address the heart of a democratic society? It doesn't. It undermines it and destroys it. And I have come to the conclusion that all this talk about theology has done nothing but to undermine and destroy the message of Jesus, which is so simple and so not theological. It is simply love God and love your neighbor and take care of God's kingdom as a result of those two things. If you love God, you will take care of God's kingdom. If you love your neighbor, you will take care of God's kingdom. They don't follow. They say, this is your statement of faith, and if you don't like it, you could just go soak your head. Well, okay, I'll just do that, I think. I'm happily soak my head in the waters of salvation and leave that behind. God bless you all. We have a new days are coming. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. God bless you. Take care. And listen for that. Listen for those voices that are calling you. All right. God bless. Goodbye.